Hey everybody, Roar of the Lions UK. It is episode 379, Crazy Stupid Love. My name's Matthew Turner, alongside Ashley Soden. How you doing, man?
Doing good, doing good. A bit cold, but to be expected this time of year. But we're getting there now. Coming up to game two of this 11-12 game day stretch for us. It's going to be fun. It's going to be hectic because obviously we're having to fit this in before Thursday when usually we do this on Thursday, but we'll survive.
We are, as you say, really hammering the shows. Of course, we have to, given exactly what's been happening with the schedule this week and for next week too. It's going to be a short week. We are, of course, here to preview Thanksgiving's game against Green Bay. But first, do join our Discord channel. Links in the live chat right now. Be great to see you there. College Football Podcast is coming up tomorrow. Lots happened last weekend, including several firings. There are several people shaping up for some of the job openings. Cal's head coach was fired. He's now in the running for Oregon State. There's lots of other stuff happening like that. You've got Ryan McCluskey trying to predict the FCS playoffs in its entirety. So that's going to be interesting if you like your FCS football. And then, of course, there's talking about the game, Michigan-Ohio State, which is happening this coming weekend. So lots for Ant and Ryan to break down. Do join them tomorrow. And do like this episode and sub to the podcast. Anything you guys can do to help us out and spread the word is much appreciated. Let's get on with some news. And of course, we were live yesterday, so there's not a huge amount here. However, one thing which has just happened, Ash, is we have waived the cornerback, Arthur Millette. And he, in rotation, has played a fairly significant amount of reps. This is not just anyone that we're waiving here, because given DJ Reed has come back, obviously that's made him slightly redundant. I think this is a good sign potentially for Terry and Arnold to come back, and it means maybe that someone else is ready to come back into the fray from injured reserve.
Yeah, exactly. So a load of the beat reporters are saying it's just because the DB room's getting a bit like locker jams now with Reed back last week, potentially Arnold back from his concussion this week. That cornerback room does get a bit congested, and we need probably the roster spots elsewhere, as you say, for players coming off the reserve lists. Like Dana said in his press conference, just that he's hopeful that Davenport will play, so that's one roster spot we need to open up. But we've also got Frazier and Pascal, whose clocks on their evaluation windows from return from PUP going up this week as well. So we need roster spots for them. Plus, obviously, the situation with Sam, did we sign another tight end, etc. So, yeah, Mellette, unfortunately, is one of the guys that has had to make way on the roster. And it makes sense. If Arnold is back from his concussion, suddenly we have our starting three back. Meat can go back into the slot on nickel downs and on base downs. Him and Reed or him and Arnold, they can all rotate. So we just need to open a cornerback spot. I hope the guy either comes back on the practice squad or finds a place elsewhere because he can make good plays. Look at the interception he had against the Bucks, that heads up play. But right now, we just didn't have room for him.
And if you think about what happens in an emergency in the slot, if, a Meek did go down and there wasn't really anyone that could fill in naturally there, then you've got in an emergency Brian Branch, you can step in there. Avonte and Maddox can step in there. They're not necessarily guys you want to play there given how we're playing, but there seems to be kind of adequate backup down there. If Branch goes down, then the rise of people like Thomas Harper and Daniel Thomas as a backup safeties who've kind of acquitted themselves quite well has kind of given them, I think, confidence to make this move.
Yeah, 100%. As you say, Maddox is probably the first guy up, and then Branch, because I think they don't want to move Branch from this sort of safety role that he's taken up, where he does play a pseudo slot role and base downs anyway. So, But yeah, Maddox, we've got enough there that, we can kind of risk it. And push comes to shove, I'm sure we can stick Whiteside or Arnold, someone there if we need to start moving people around, or just go 100% base and don't play a nickel at all.
As you mentioned, it looks like Marcus Davenport will come back this week. Dan Campbell has said he is hopeful that Marcus Davenport can play this week, and I know that he is a much maligned character, not just for his time at the Lions, but, his Saints career was obviously blighted by injury. But when he has been on the field, he has been impactful. He does bring something a bit different. If he is coming back this weekend, even on a limited snap count, maybe even as a reserve who just rotates in, maybe even a third down, it is going to provide something that maybe the Lions haven't had as yet. And I'm cautious to say he's going to be an impactful player. That remains to be seen. But especially this late in the season, we haven't seen Davenport be fit this late in the season. I mean, he's just coming off injured reserve, but, you know, I'm quietly, foolishly hopeful, should we say.
Yeah, and the best thing about it, in my opinion at least, and it is something we kind of mentioned a bit yesterday, having him back will hopefully end the Ali McNeil at the edge experiments. Like, I get why we do it. As I said on Discord today, it's when we usually do like a pseudo 3-man look at in front anyway. But it just means we could just put Aline back at the free tech where he's best. We're not messing him around. He'll hopefully be more productive, and it just gives us more of a rotational piece. It means that, yeah, if the team doesn't trust AQ on base running downs, you could put Davenport there. He's relatively good against the run. You can rotate. It just gives us more options on the edge. And considering one of the what happened sort of last a couple of days ago, how for the Giants game where Aiden was getting home, but there wasn't much else going on. Just gives us a bit more hope for that push. So you're making things easier for Aiden, who get a bit more production from elsewhere. It'll just open things up. But yeah, his health hopefully will continue into the playoffs. It's not going to be like we get him on Thursday and then something happens. He goes up against Zakatom and breaks his arm or something again. That's not what we need.
Other news that we've had since yesterday, Dan Campbell's been talking about other players. He says he does not see Kirby Joseph playing on Thursday. That's not really a surprise in a short week. He'll have another week to get healthy for Thursday Night Football next week against the Dallas Cowboys. I'm quietly hopeful he'll be able to get back for that, but we shall see. I'm hoping he'll have like a limited practice on Wednesday, just to kind of log something, even if he's not going to be active, but we'll see. He also says that Khalif Raymond's ankle is stiff and swollen, waiting until tomorrow to determine his game status. Frankly, that doesn't sound good to me. I suspect quite heavily that Khalif will be out, given that they're not sure and that his ankle is stiff and swollen. It doesn't necessarily get that much better with 2 days rest. And frankly, you can replace him at returner and you can replace him at wide receiver 3. I hate saying this, more easily than some of the other wide receivers on the team. So if you can hold him out, I think that's probably wise. I'll come on to the other bits in just a minute, Ash, but what do you think on Khalif and Kirby?
Yeah, I'm a bit upset that obviously Kirby can't come back for various bias reasons. I know people are saying, well, this definitely means he should have gone on IR, but I think it is one of them where it's a week-to-week injury. And imagine if it was the other way, we did put him on IR and he was able to come, his injury was over in 2 weeks, and then he's spending 2 weeks on IR needlessly. I can see why we've done what we did, especially with the team being cautious now about their IR to return spots with so many guys coming off in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, I know some probably won't. Zylstra supposedly announced that he's done for the season, according to some beat reporters. Manu's 50-50 whether he'll be back, but we need those spots. I can see why the team's done that, but at the same time, would have been really nice to have him on the back end. And then against Jordan Love, pick him off a couple more times, especially with as much as I do like what Thomas Harper's done. One of the weaknesses has been sort of containing teams when we are playing zone. The team just plays better when we do zone, and we've got Kirby back there rather than someone else. So it's going to be a bit of a miss. Khalif, I said as much yesterday. I think when the way he was ruled out pretty quickly after his injury, it was questionable. Then it was quickly rolled out. He's probably not playing this week, and hopefully it means an uptick for Tesla in snaps and targets and such. He kind of needs it. I know Dan was asked about Tesla in his press just, and he said he's coming on, we'll try more things, blah, blah, blah. All the coach speak. This is the week to show it. And then on returns, you've got Dominic Lovett, who we drafted late on this draft cycle as a special teamer. Let's see what he's got there. Or you've got Tom Kennedy on the practice squad who can be called up and fill in that kind of veteran wide receiver role and do some returns. We've got options there. Just rest him because it's definitely impactful on offense. with what he's been doing on punt return, frankly, you could, as long as you've got a short-handed guy, they can fair catch him, because that's basically what he's been doing on 95% of his punts anyway. He hasn't really been returning them for many yards anyway. So maybe it's a good chance to give Lovett a chance, see what we got there, because we did theorise, at least I did, that when we drafted him, there's our replacement for Cleef in the future when his contract's up. Now's the chance to see what we've got in Tesla and Lovett in those phases.
Other pieces of news in here. Dan was asked about why the Lions have been giving up so many third and longs on defence. He did not give a specific answer, but blamed a variety of things, including penalties, tackling in space, and pressure not getting home. Yeah, seems reasonable. The other piece of news is more interesting for European fans and maybe South American fans, who knows. Per Dave Paquette, the Lions are likely to host an international game in 2026. The popular train of thought is that would be in Germany. And may I say to the Germans, take my money. I'm coming.
Yeah, same. Definitely.
All right. Green Bay. We're going to do our usual breakdown, and then we're going to sign off from the pod. And for the YouTube and Twitch audience, we're going to have a look at the rest of the Thanksgiving games, because we'll be live on Friday breaking this down before Black Friday's game. Packers are 7-3-1 so far this season. Their expected win total was 7.2, so 7.5 wins is pretty much bang on the money. Started out the season with wins versus Detroit and Washington, a loss to Cleveland, and then a tie at Dallas, wins against Cincinnati, Arizona, and at Pittsburgh. Losses to Carolina and Philadelphia before wins versus the Giants and the Vikings. In the betting for this game, the Detroit Lions are favourites, 6-4 on, that's -150. The Packers are 5-4, that's +125. That means that the Lions have a 2.5 point spread in their favour, and the over-under is 49 points. We don't yet have an injury report for today being Tuesday. Monday was a walkthrough. So these are estimated by the team. That did not practices for the Lions are Khalif Raymond, aforementioned. Tight end Brock Wright, who has a neck injury. He very clearly went down heavily on his head in the game against the Giants, so that is no surprise. Graham Glasgow and Kirby Joseph as well did not practice. The Limiteds, wide receiver Isaac Tesla, running back Sione Vaki and Jacob Sailors, tackle Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell, guards Tate Ratledge, cornerback Terrion Arnold, and safety Brian Branch. And in the full practices are all guys who are designated to return in guard Miles Frazier, defensive ends Josh Pascal and Marcus Davenport. For the Packers, I wasn't able to establish very quickly whether that was a walkthrough or not. I have to imagine it was, since they played on Sunday. Most teams do not go straight into a practice when they have a Thursday game. It is pretty standard, I think, to perform a walkthrough. So Ash is going to check now, but for now, assume that this is a walkthrough. Green Bay's did not practices is quite long. Wide receiver Savion Williams, defensive tackle Carl Brooks, defensive end Lucas Van Ness, and cornerback Keyshawn Nixon. Limited in practice. Running back Josh Jacobs, wide receiver Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, and why have I blanked on Wicks' first name? Dontavian, thank you. And then the tackle Zach Tom. The linebacker Edgarin Cooper and Quay Walker, cornerback Nate Hobbs, and safety Javon Bullard. Full practice for quarterback Jordan Love and wide receivers Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs. On injured reserve for this team, running back Marshawn Lloyd, tight end extraordinaire Tucker Kraft, might have been the best in the NFL at the time when he went down. Tackle Travis Glover, center Elton Jenkins, defensive end Brenton Cox Jr., linebacker Nick Neiman, and the wide receiver Jaden Reed is designated for return, so he's currently on injured reserve, expected to be activated before the game. On the PUP for them, the guard John Williams and defensive end Colin Oliver. I'll go through the depth chart. Sorry, Ash, you look like you found something.
Yeah, they didn't even do a walkthrough. They just didn't practice at all Monday, not even a walkthrough. So it is again estimated. Though again, my campaign for the Packers to sort themselves out because they list their injury report by alphabetical order of player, which is annoying as fuck.
That's why I sorted it by the way I wanted to in our preparation
Exactly.
doc. But anyway, all right, let's go through this team in terms of the depth chart on offense and defense. Then I'll throw it to you to talk about this team. So the quarterback is Jordan Love, backed up by Malik Willis. Running backs are Josh Jacobs, backed up by Emmanuel Wilson, who was extraordinary on Sunday, and Chris Brooks. Wide receivers, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, and Matthew Golden, backed up by Dontavian Wicks, Malik Keith, and Bo Melton, and Savion Williams. Tight ends, Luke Musgrave, John Fitzpatrick, and Josh Wiley. And then the front five, Rashid Walker, Aaron Banks, Sean Ryan, Jordan Morgan, and Zach Tom. They're backed up by Anthony Belton, Jacob Monk, Donovan Jennings, and Darian Kennard. On the defense, play a base nickel. And the 4 down linemen are Rashawn Gary, Devontae Wyatt, Colby Wooden, and Micah Parsons. They're backed up at the edge by Kingsley Enagbare, Lucas Van Ness, Aaron Mosby, and Baron Sorrell, and at the defensive tackle positions by Carl Brooks, Warren Brunson, and Nazir Stackhouse. At linebacker, they have starting Edgar Cooper and Quay Walker. They're backed up by Tyron Hopper, Isaiah McDuffie, and Christian Welch. The Knickers, Javon Bullard. Outside corners are Keyshawn Nixon and Carrington Valentine. They're backed up by Kamal Haddon and Nate Hobbs. And then the safeties, Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams, rival ours at being the best safeties in the NFL's tandem. They're backed up by Katan Oladapo and Zane Anderson. The punter is Daniel Whelan, one of the best in the NFL. Their kicker is Brandon McManus, used to be one of the best in the NFL. He's coming back. He is getting better the more games he's getting under his belt after his suspension. Actually have a backup kicker on the roster as well, Lucas Havarisk. And then the long snapper is Matt Orzech. Ash, I'm looking at their resume, and with the exception of a win against Detroit in week 1, I do not see a quality win on their schedule. They beat Detroit, Washington, Cincinnati, Arizona, Pittsburgh, the Giants, and the Vikings. Vikings questionable. They certainly are not a particularly good team at the moment with you-know-who at quarterback, but they did beat us. Mm-hmm. Likewise, they lost to Carolina and Cleveland, as well as Philadelphia. So I think that the 7 wins that they have is an interesting one because they sound like a really good team by their number of wins, but who have they actually played? And I think that is represented in, the betting because, frankly, never mind the fact that they don't really have any quality wins apart from us. They've not looked great yet so far this season. Jordan Love has his moments. And if you go through the depth chart as we just had, there's plenty of names in there and there's plenty of reason for optimism if you're a Green Bay Packers fan. And certainly some of the players have come to light, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. But overall, this team, I don't think, has been living up to what their potential is.
Yeah, 100%. So it was our friends at Talking Great was listening to at the gym while on the way back from that, and they pointed to that very interesting stat that currently the Packers have not won a game against a playoff team. So if you look at the player picture right now, none of the teams they have beaten are currently in the playoff picture at all. Obviously, that's a bit concerning to hear when we're one of their wins and we're just outside the playoffs, obviously, but that can change. Well, us in ours, we're 3-2 against playoff teams. They're going to get their difficult stretch of the teams now, as are we. Like anyone in the NFC North is having a tough end to the season right now. But yet they haven't really gone out and beaten a team. Like the wins against us and Washington early in the season looked amazing on paper. They probably are their 2 quality wins in a row because Washington at that point, they weren't really too injured. Jaden Daniels is still their quarterback. They still had pieces. Clorum was playing in that, and they beat them quite handily. Us, obviously, to back-to-back divisional winners, we're hopefully going to bounce back and make the playoffs. But you look at the rest of the teams that they've beaten. Cincy might scrape in as a wild card, do what if over the Steelers, maybe if Joe Burrow does play on Thursday and he plays well. But the rest, beating Minnesota, especially with McCarthy's under center, not that great. Beating the Giants, well, we've just done that, so we can't disparage them too much. But they were heavily helped out by the fact that they got the interception at the end. They should have won that a bit more handily, but they didn't. They kept it close like we did. Arizona, well, as much as I tried to trump them up in the offseason thinking, oh, yeah, they'll be okay, they've been crap this season. Pittsburgh was meh. Like, time with Dallas, at that point, they hadn't had a good defense. I know their defense turned around recently, but that was a shootout, and they managed to tie against what was a bad team back then. They hadn't really sorted things out like they have now. And then you look at their losses, losing to Cleveland in the way they did. I know that at that point, Cleveland's defense was the best in the NFL, but come on, really? Losing to Carolina, as much as me and Amp loved them, again, should have beat them. They lose quite handily with that. The Philly game was scrappy like ours, but they had chances to win it. They didn't take them, much like us. They are just us, but they've had a bit more luck in some ways in some of the teams they've played compared to us. They've had a third place schedule compared to our first place one, and they've made use of that. No doubts about it. But yeah, it puts their whole season in context when they currently have not beaten a team that's, currently slated to be in the playoffs. So it says it all, and it's mostly because of the offense, in my opinion. Like, this defense of Jeff Hafney, as I mentioned yesterday, it has been pretty damn good. Adding Micah Parsons has obviously pushed them over the edge in that way, but just having year two under a new defensive coordinator who's actually competent has really helped them. Their safety duo was really damn good. Xavier McKinney was obviously pushing Kirby pretty much throughout last season for the interception lead, and he's a damn good safety. I very much respect him. Rashawn Gary's finally sort of gotten over his ACL tear a couple of years ago. He's fully back up to form. They've worked some stuff out in the interior with Devonta Wyatt. Their linebackers are good. Their corners are playing much above what they should be. Hafner's really elevated them. Their defense is very much carrying this team because the offense is just as inconsistent as ours. They're maybe having a bit of a bounce up now that Christian Watson's healthy and he's looking good in his role. But, and really talks him up a couple of weeks ago after this time last week, discussing the Giants, saying, well, look what the Packers did with Christian Watson. He has kind of turned into that wide receiver one they were hoping. But Jacobs being out's hurt them. Love has been inconsistent. Like, I think Willis, when he came in briefly for Love a couple of weeks ago, and looked really damn good. Throwing that touchdown puts a lot of things in context there. And their offensive line, well, it's not as good as it used to be, much like ours. And their best piece on it, arguably, in Elton Jenkins, is now out. So I put that graph in our Discord earlier about their runs through the gap. They have one good run gap, and that's it's the right-hand A gap between the centre and right guard. Everything else is bad in terms of their run game. Like, Jacobs has been making more out of it than he can. It's a tough team. It is a tough team to judge because, we've got having our back of mind. They did beat us. They seemingly have our number this season. They know how to exploit our interior offensive line, but at the same time, they're not exactly great. And hopefully we can turn around on Thursday now and paper over the cracks in the way that has been showed up by them early in the season, but definitely against the Giants and against the Vikings and such, where we have some issues. Hopefully the team's got the fire lit under their arse that we need to win this game to keep in the divisional race, because, I know we've got technically 2 wins, let's say, to play with to still make the playoffs. We still have 2 losses that we can concede. Don't let it be to the Packers, because that'll put it those divisional games really do mean 2 wins now. And we don't want to fall even further behind them and in the NFC race, because otherwise, we might get behind it. Like, the Bears will probably fall off now. They're facing a difficult stretch of the schedule. The Packers will, but they'll have the tiebreaker over us in any standings, and that's not what we want to give them.
All right. Stats. Overall, PFF has this as the 4th overall team. Offense 9th, defense 5th, special teams 26th. DVOA has it overall the 6th team. EPA has it 10th, with the offense 5th and the defense 20th. So while PFF thinks the offense is better than the defense, EPA has it's the defense better than the offense. EPA has the opposite there. EPA also thinks this is a much less efficient team than potentially the person at PFF grading the players individually thinks. I think that's an interesting wrinkle to this. Anyway, quarterback Jordan Love, he has 224 completions on 331 attempts. That's a 67.7% completion rate for 2,560 yards, 15 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, passer rating 102, QBR 70, PFF grade 83.5. Interesting wrinkle, he leads the league in fumble recoveries with 4. That's because he fumbles and then recovers his own fumble. Josh Jacobs is the lead back. He did not go on Sunday, but is expected to go on Thursday. His 169 carries for 648 yards. That's only 3.8 yards per carry, but he does have 11 touchdowns on the ground so far this season. Through the air, he's 237. That's 8.5 yards a catch, but no touchdowns through the air. His PFF grade is 80.9. Leading receiver is Romeo Dobbs, 41 of 67 for 522, 12.7 yards per catch, and 4 touchdowns. And for some reason, I listed Luke Musgrave as the leading tight end with the loss of Tucker Kraft, but I'm not sure that's entirely true. They in fact use John Fitzpatrick at the moment a bit more than him. Fitzpatrick is 7 of 7 for 40 and a touchdown. Luke Musgrave 14 of 17 for 117 and no touchdowns. Fitzpatrick, of course, a bit more of a blocking tight end, and actually bulldozed some people, look really good doing it. This team has some other good grades too. The wide receiver Christian Watson has rebounded from his injury troubles in a really big way with an 82.3 grade. He was magnificent in the last couple of games. And the tackle Zach Tom, one of the best in the NFL at right tackle. His grade is 81.7. There are no bad grades on offense that have taken any significant reps. This team is the best on third down. They've converted 68 times on 138 attempts. That's 49%, number 1 in the NFL. On fourth down, 9 of 14 for 9th in the NFL. And in the red zone, 29 of 44, 66% is 6th. So first, 9th and 6th on offense when it comes to the money downs. They are extremely efficient in those situations. Also worth mentioning, 44 trips to the red zone in just 11 games. That is exceptionally high. On defense, leading defensive tackles Devontae Wyatt, 2 passes defended, 4 sacks, 23 tackles, 5 TFLs, 7 quarterback hits, PFF grade of only 55, but I thought he looked really good on Sunday. He ran some stunts with Micah Parsons, who lined up all over the place in that claim, including over the centre, and he pancaked the centre when he did that, as well as on both the edges, getting running starts from linebacker. He is the Swiss Army knife where you can just line him up wherever and he'll find your weakness, not unlike Myles Garrett. 1 forced fumble this year, 10 sacks, 30 tackles, 9 TFLs, 20 quarterback hits, and a PFF grade of 91.8. Leading linebacker is Edgar Cooper, the second-year player. I think is outshining Quay Walker now, to be frank. 4 passes defended, 1.5 sacks, 84 tackles, 6 TFLs, 6 quarterback hits, PFF grade of 73.6. Keyshawn Nixon has made fools of us all at cornerback. We called him a glorified special team or a punt returner, but he really has turned it on this season. 14 passes defended this year. 1 fumble recovery, 49 tackles, 2 TFLs, and a PFF grade of 68. And I mean, you know, DBs get graded pretty harshly by PFF most of the time. Getting a 68 outside corner when your pedigree has been majority in special teams, that's exceptional, I think. And then safety Xavier McKinney's the leading safety with 2 interceptions, 5 passes defended, 1 forced fumble, 1 sack, 67 tackles, and a quarterback hit, and a PFF grade of 78.5. Other good grades in there: linebacker Isaiah McDuffie 74.5, cornerback Carrington Valentine is 74.5, defensive end Lucas Van Ness is 73.4, and the other safety Evan Williams is a 72.6. There are some worse grades in there, sub 60 grades for people taking significant reps. That's the cornerback Nate Hobbs, 56.8. Wasn't intended to be a starter for this team, but frankly, Carrington Valentine has outshined him. Defensive tackle Carl Brooks, 56.7. And then I mentioned Quay Walker. He is at a 55.3. He may be fast, but he's still a headless chicken who knows, maybe we can get him ejected in this game, like he has done twice against the Lions before. Money downs. They're 10th on third down, allowing 36% completion rate. They are 17th on fourth down with 58% completion rate, and they have allowed 59% of the red zone trips against to turn into touchdowns. 17 of 29, that's 18th. But worth mentioning this, when I said that they have 44 trips to the red zone on offense, they've only allowed 29 on defense. That's 1/3 less. That's exceptional. Other tendencies for this defense, their blitz rate, they blitz 19% of the time. That's 29th in the NFL. When they do blitz, it will be a surprise, and the reason that they can do that is because they've got first rounders everywhere on that defensive line, and they will get home with 4. They have a light box rate 50% of the time. That's 9th. Again, first rounders on the defensive line, how well they hold up means that they trust that defensive line to hold up against the run, and so therefore they can have more DBs and secondary players in the game, meaning they can cover more. You can see how this defense is built to work. Their sub-package rate is 68%. That's 20th. So they do like to mix it up. They're not in sub all the time. They do play a third linebacker more often than most, although they're about middle of the pack. Heavy box rate is 19%. That's the 8th least in the NFL. Obviously, if they're the 9th most in the light box rate, that's not exactly a surprise. They don't really load up the box. This could therefore be a good game for Monty and or Gibbs to try and run. And then they play man 19.2% of the time. That is 19th in the NFL. So you can see how little pure man the NFL plays. There's quite often hybrids of man and zone in there too, but they play an exceptional amount of zone, as almost everybody does. Ash, I've gone through a lot and I've talked for a long time, so I'm going to throw it over to you. And I'll start with the offense, which I probably should have stopped at the end of their stats, but hey. Offensively, Love is playing in fits and bursts. Jacobs at 3.8 yards a carry is not setting the world alight, but he's scoring plenty of touchdowns. But I think the most notable thing that I'm seeing from this team is that this used to be a team full of wide receiver 2s. But what I've seen from Christian Watson recently and his link up with Jordan Love is that Watson, after his injury troubles, he's got injury free. And he's starting to look like the receiver that those who liked him in the draft process, I was emphatically one of those people. He's starting to turn into that guy, and that's a little bit of a worry for the rest of the NFC North because the Packers haven't had anyone to be that guy in a while.
Yeah, the last time the Packers had a receiver, anything like that, was obviously when Devontae Adams was wearing the yellow and green. So it is a bit concerning, but at the same time, that's what happens. All the other NFC North teams have had receivers like that. Like we've got Amon-Ra, the Vikings have got Jefferson, the Bears did have DJ Moore in that role, and now he's getting overtaken by Dunze. It's nice for him to finally catch up, but it's nothing too concerning because, as I say, we defend the other teams' big wide receiver ones pretty damn well. So I'm not too worried about it, especially if Reed is back 100%. Terrian's back from his concussion. Will be hopefully fully healthy. We'll be able to match up well with him. It is just how sort of efficient they are. As much as I did rag on the Merlis and the defense is carrying their team. It's not like their offense is completely bad. So again, the stats I've got, unfortunately, most of them are outdated because the websites I use don't update until tonight. So that's fun. But when they play 11 personnel first in EPA going into last week, when they play 12 personnel, which they do a lot, they're the sixth highest usage of it in the NFL, 7th highest EPA. When they go use 21 personnel, so 2 running backs, 1 tight end, they're 5th in EPA. They know that they're efficient when they do run these things. Play action, they're 3rd below worst. Motion, which they use around the middle of the pack, 13th most, but they get the 8th highest EPA. Under center, they go to 12th, but that's 8th. They know what they're doing on offense. And yeah, having Watson just be that guy that, long story short, if Love does the balls they likes to do, because he's one of those that does like to throw the 50-50 balls that other QBs like Goff wouldn't. He's now got that X receiver, that no receiver one that he could go to in those situations that Dobbs kind of was that before in his sort of big-bodied role, but doesn't have athleticism and arguably the hands. He did have a high drop rate. So Watson finally breaking out is a bit concerning because suddenly Love can be slightly more efficient, because a load of the times before when he threw the balls they likes to, the contested ones, did get picked off because there was no one there to battle for them. Having Watson be that role helps them, helps Jacobs, because suddenly the boxes will lighten up against them because they can't just sit on the run like teams usually do against them before. So before going into last week, they faced light boxes, the 13th most in the league. Well, 13th most in the league, but they're 7th in EPA against that. They're 6th in EPA on inside runs. They can do them a bit more because Watson's there. It just gives them a whole lot of sort of a boost there. Hell, even their deep EPA, which they're middle league 14th with, will get a boost. Everywhere you look at this Green Bay offense, well, it's not the most consistent offense. When it does work, it really does work. And that's concerning, especially considering what we saw from the defense last week. As much as I'd like to put that up to a blip, because the stack of evidence pretty much the rest of the season has been, this is a very good defense. Look what we did to the Bucks with a banged up secondary. Look what we did to the Eagles, who last year were a good offense as well. There's slight things there that do concern me, and hopefully we can bounce back on Thursday and contain Watson, contain a banged up Josh Jacobs. Don't let Love do what he did to us in week 1, because otherwise it's going to be a tough old day. But there's definitely ways of doing it. So having that gap discipline on the defensive line to not let Jacobs and Love get on the move and just hold down Watson, because they don't have Tucker there, who's the guy that really killed us on week 1. As much as I hate the guy for the beef we have against him, it is a letdown for them. He would have been a very good match weapon for us against us. Musgrave's okay, but it's not as good. But if we can just hold Watson in check and keep Love in the pocket and don't let Josh Jacobs run wild, sounds like we should be able to contain this offense. But we didn't do it against Winston, and Love, as much as he's not a good QB, he's better than Winston. And Watson's better than Wan'Dale Robinson, and Josh Jacobs is better than Devin Singletary, Tyrone Tracy Jr. So let's hope Shepard's really had a go at this defense, because if we play like we did on Sunday night, this could be a long old Thanksgiving game.
Mm. And then I went through the defensive stats as well. What's notable to me is just how many good graded players there are in there. And we'll talk about the game against Minnesota on Sunday shortly, but Wyatt had his best game of the season on Sunday, despite not playing well for a lot of the season beforehand. He really seems to have gelled with Parsons next to him. Edgar Cooper's been a revelation at linebacker. He was great last year. He's been good again. And then with the rise of Carrington Valentine alongside Keyshawn Nixon having one of the best safety tandems in the NFL behind it, there's very few weak links on this team. Maybe they have been susceptible against the run a little bit, but in some ways it's, well, we can't hang against this pass rush, so what are we going to do in some ways?
Yeah, it really is. And the concerning news for at least us is they're also pretty good. They're not, statistically wise, they're not exactly great, but again, there's areas where they are just elite. So they're second in the NFL right now as explosive play rate given up, only 6.7% of plays faced. It's explosive. They're really damn good in too high, which is what they live in under Hafney. They're 8th best EPA. When they do blitz, they're really damn good at it. They get 6th best EPA per play. But when they also don't blitz, they're also the 9th best. They're just so good under Hafney. And the concern will be containing pass rush, because that's what's got us week 1. And with us potentially going the way that we showed we did last week, if Goff is having an off week again, if the wrist injury, I know a load of people are downplaying it, Amon-Ra himself, if that wrist injury really is playing him up and he does have the dropsies again, if we can't get JMO and Tesla involved on the outside as much as we like to, and if Wright isn't as big as a part of the offense as he should be as our main tight end right now, with him having a neck injury, he might not even play. Hell, again, it'll be hard because, they can just tee off on the run and early downs, get into third and longs again, and then suddenly just bracket Amon-Ra, and they're sorted, because they know they will, because of how good their linebackers are. We do the stuff again where a bit like third and long, right? Throw it into the flats, throw a screen to Gibbs, Monty, whoever it is. They'll just crash down on it, and we won't get the yardage. So it is going to be concerning. If they can stop the run against us, we're done for. But the good news is we're really good at inside runs. They're susceptible to them. They're much better against outside runs than they are inside runs, and that's what we're simply good at. Look at all of Gibbs' plays last week, aside from the toss space and Monty, most of our big runs came from inside zone with the running back choosing the right hole, beating the linebacker and going to the races. So that's the one thing we need to do is make sure we run the ball well, because otherwise, yeah, Parsons, Gary, Lucas Van Ness, Wyatt, they can all just key in on the pass, pin their ears back, target that interior, help they might blitz a bit more against us because of it. And they'll make off stays long and we'll be punting the ball a lot again, which, as much as I love Jack Fox and he is arguably on a Hall of Fame track, let's not give him more stats to pump up that Hall of Fame resume. Let's hope he can just sit on the sideline and only have to come on to kick some field goals, because otherwise, yeah, it might be an 0-2 season against the Packers, and God will hear about it.
When you said kick some field goals, I was like, oh my God, what's happening to Jake Bates?
I meant hold the ball for the
yeah. I got you. I was like, he's still on those plays. So.
Yeah, he is. He comes on holes, but yeah,
maybe he can throw some touchdowns on a fake field goal. That would be fun.
Yeah, to be fair,
he's got an arm.
History of that. He's got an arm. We do have a history of fake field goals against the Packers. I'm thinking Matt Prater cadence when McAfee was commentating.
Yeah. Right, let's talk briefly about the Vikings game, just because it was only 2 days ago, and so obviously it's going to kind of factor into this game. And then we'll talk specifically a little bit more about the matchup between the Lions and the Packers, although you've kind of covered a lot of that already. On the offense for Green Bay, Love had drives where he looked great and then looked terrible. First drive was especially good, very accurate. He's very good when he's in rhythm. I know every quarterback is, but that very first drive, just 2-strap drop and rip it. And yeah, it was really, really nice. What for them really stood out to me is that their offensive line has been much maligned this year. People complaining about left, right, and centre. It's not playing up to itself. It's regressed. Blah, 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 blah. You're coming up against the Vikings, who should really be able to take advantage of that. You have a look at the exotic stuff that they do. It gave us fits when we played the Vikings. Green Bay had their way with this Vikings defensive line all day. Vikings had no answer for Green Bay's offensive line. Gives me a little bit of trepidation, actually, but the Packers ran the ball a lot because they could, especially when they got up a lot. They kind of shut Love down almost and just continued to run the ball. It looked quite conservative, but the Vikings never forced them to try and do anything particularly exotic. Love did have an unblocked blitzer in his face on a third down, and he threw a lovely ball to Dontavian Wicks over Blake Cashman. He had to fit it in between the linebacker and the safety, the linebacker who's dropping into coverage, and he only had about a second to get it off. It was an absolute peach. Wilson was the guy who was the main beneficiary of all the damage that the offensive line were doing up front. He went for over 100 yards for the first time in his career. Love actually had a really nice scramble. He recognised that he had man coverage and a huge gap up front and managed to get a first down. He's capable of it, even though he doesn't use it particularly much. Seemed to just have great chemistry with Watson, as I kind of mentioned earlier. They did have a 3rd and 1 blown up by Eric Wilson on a run blitz when he was shooting the A-gap. I'm looking for Anzalone to kind of be that guy to do the same thing. Key in on those opportunities where the offensive line aren't quite quick enough to react. If you know what's coming, just go and hit it. That might be one way we can try and shut them down. Of course, we tried to do that on Sunday against the Giants, found out that actually if you do that and you get blocks, you're out of position, it creates a load of gaps, and that's how you have damage done to you too. Green Bay were, like I said, running the hell out of it when they were 11 points up and getting pretty much everything they wanted. The Vikings couldn't stop them even though they knew it was going to be run. In fact, at some point in that drive, I think they ran it 5 or 6 straight times as a kind of fuck you, which was great. On the defensive side, they gave up a 13-yarder to Aaron Jones in his return to Green Bay against Duo on the second play of the game. There was a play-action slant to Jefferson versus Nixon. Really nice throw by J.J. McCarthy. And we'll go underrated in one of the worst quarterback performances of the year, is he had 2 beautiful throws, like really high-level beautiful throws, intermixed with some absolute dross. Screens were getting blown up all over the place. The Packers were very alert to the screen game and were just tackling them for a loss whenever that was kind of going their way. There was a second and long, and they ran a draw, and they were very quick to react to that too. So all of this little stuff, which the Lions like to wrinkle in, Packers keyed into it against the Vikings very, very well. Love to play zone, as I kind of highlighted earlier. 81% of the time they're running zone or a hybrid zone system. With a little bit of a soft cushion, but just allowing throws underneath and then being very, very good at reacting to kind of coming uphill once the throw's been made. Not once the catch has been made, they are hitting the guy as he's getting to the ball. So, it's going to be a really, really hard day if you're in third and long, because they're not going to allow anything over the top. Vikings had some success running power in consecutive plays. I think they ran it 3 straight times with Aaron Jones, and the Packers kind of struggled with that. They then went away from it, and I think that actually led to the 3rd and 1 where they had a hawk sneak, which didn't work, and then a 4th and 1 on an inside zone from shotgun, which was blown up too. So just a terrible run of plays for the Vikings then, but it started off with really good running success, something the Lions maybe can take away. McCarthy took awful sacks all day. His internal clock wasn't working, and I mean, historically, he has had a bad internal clock with both Michigan and with the Vikings, so that's not a surprise. At the end of the first half, he took himself out of field goal range with a coverage sack. They did get back into field goal range the very next play. There was only 15 seconds left, so they were lucky to get back in there. They're also fortunate, the Vikings, they've got maybe the best kicker in the game in Will Rijkaard. He is exceptional. Parsons had an absolutely wicked rep against Christian Darrisaw. A quick win inside in sack when McCarthy doesn't let it go when he had the opportunity, but he only had about a second to throw it. And then a couple of plays later, Parsons beats Darrisaw again. The first time it was on the inside shoulder. Second time, speed rush around the outside, and JJ McCarthy again just holds the ball too long. Then Parsons runs over the centre, Ryan Kelly, who only just came back from injury. And by doing that, he caused Devontae Wyatt to have a sack near the end zone, ending that drive. Parsons then went over to the other side and ruined Brian O'Neill against the run to get a TFL. He just tossed him around like a rag doll. Ryan Gary then get on the action. He hit JJ McCarthy as he throws, which caused an interception by Isaiah McDuffie quite late on in the game. And then a second interception by JJ McCarthy saw an overthrow deep straight into Evan Williams. It is worth mentioning in this game that with 6 minutes left in the 4th quarter, having been down 2 scores for a good amount of the second half, Minnesota only had 9 plays for negative 21 yards. That is how much the Packers dominated on defense, and the Vikings could not match at all with the passing game. In terms of special teams, it was all good stuff for the Packers. Great kick coverage, great punting and punt coverage, really good field goal and PAT stuff. And then on the punt coverage, they had a punt which was allowed to bounce, and Price was pushed into the ball on a punt which was recovered by Green Bay, which they then promptly from 6 yards out scored a couple of plays later. Really good heads-up play from the Packers on special teams. The fact that they are rated currently by PFF as the 26th best special teams unit, I mean, I really am not sure what has happened in the first 8 or 9 games, but I thought that on Sunday they were exceptional on special teams. So it was a bit of a massacre, really, and a bit of a laugh because the Packers could have scored more, but just didn't have to. Ash, did you watch the game? Did you see anything different? I mean, it was pretty rough. A battle of NFC North teams, when you don't really want anyone to win, this was just pretty rough watching, really.
It was, yeah. I've only caught like the sort of highlights, but it's just I didn't really take too much away in terms of Green Bay, honestly, because they were going up against the Vikings. The Vikings just looked dire, and so yeah, Green Bay, especially on offense, as you say, as soon as they got the lead, they just ran the ball. They just ran the ball, and the defense just teed off against McCarthy, and yeah, just not. I didn't take too much away. But could completely agree with everything you've said. Like, the only big thing, as you say, is the sneak is a bad idea. Don't do it. So we won't. Which is sad for me. It means I have to wait another week for my Liam McNeil fullback dive, but there's still time. But also just the running power. That tracks what I just said about them not being as good against inside runs in terms of EPA. As we saw this week against the Giants, Gibbs, who, yeah, he's not seen as the power back, but if he hits the gap and just gets past the linebacker, and he's gone. So that's something we can definitely play into, and hopefully, is with Monty needing an uptick just in form, I think it's a situation where he's just not getting the amount of plays he needs to get in rhythm and bust a run that is longer than, the 3-4 yards he seemingly picks up. This would be a good week to, as I say, focus on the run, get the pressure off Goff, and then start using the play action, because otherwise, if we play into their hands, try and pass the ball, they're just going to sit there, take it all day, and pick off a couple of passes.
It's going to be one of those tough ones, because part of this makes me want to say pound the rock. But the Lions have shown, especially on Sunday, that even if they have tremendous success on the ground, they'll go away from it for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
And part of me kind of feels like you do want this Packers unit to respect the fact that you're going to run the ball, because they don't want to come downhill. But show them that you're willing to throw into that coverage, because they're so electric in kind of standing back and just being itching to come downhill to come and hit you, that I kind of want to say to them, no, you hang back. We're going to throw into this. Don't you worry. And, we have got a quarterback in Jared Goff who doesn't love throwing against zone. I know Amon-Ra loves playing against man or zone, but Goff himself is a much better quarterback against man. They play a very high zone rate. I'd love to see, because they'll know this, I'd love to see us kind of going against that tendency and just saying, we aren't scared of you, and using that pass to open up the run. But in some ways, I'm only saying that because I know the Lions aren't going to do what I ask, which is just run the ball 20 times in a row and see whether they adjust. Because if they don't, we'll win the game. And when they do adjust, now we've opened it up. But in prior years, I really feel like we've been putting our foot on the throats of opposition. And this year, it kind of feels like we've kind of put it on, put it off, put it on, put it off. And it's like, why are we letting up here? Or why are we going against something which is working? Can we please just do something which is working over and over again? Like, the stop hitting yourself Nelson meme from The Simpsons. Like, can we please do that?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like, the reason I say, but I agree, we do need to run the ball. But if we are gonna sort of dare them and pass to open up the run, we have to get JMO involved, especially because they love doing their too high, as I said earlier. So getting JMO running posts, which we know he can run, his first 2 touchdowns in the league, and I think it was both his first 2 catches in the league were on those posts. Use them to stretch, to get the safeties and that, to respect that, to leave it back, and then we can run. But again, as you said, we can't trust the team to do that. I think the only time they've really had a game plan and stuck to it that everyone agreed with was the Bears game. And there's a reason why that was our biggest win of the season. Every other time, as you say, something's been working, but we go away from it for no entire reason. That's because it was like it's been the issue the past couple of years. Ben would always do it, wouldn't he? At halftime, he'll try and make the early adjustment to, they're going to try and stop us do this, so we've got to move early to try and beat them, and it just plays right into the opposition's hands. We don't need to do that yet. Just have, of course, sprinkling in the pass. You can't just go completely away from it, but if you're going to pass, don't let it be the short shit screens, the flares, the flat routes, and that. Maybe a couple of crosses, but attack the space between the linebackers and the safeties, the intermediate game with JMO, with Amon-Ra, hell, with Brock Wright. There's a reason why I think the team put out the under helmet of him last week, because he's going to be part of this team going forward for the rest of the season as an integral part. Use them. And Tesla, as I keep saying, I think I said it yesterday, he was so good at running those Josh Reynolds routes at Arkansas when he was asked to. Use him on those. It's so easy. But if I wish we could just go to Ben and go to Dan, go to Hank, go to Johnny Morton, go to Jashard, and just say, run the fucking ball. But as you say, they won't. It'll work for Ben. So they'll be like, right, it's time to pass the ball into the flats, and we'll stall out.
On defense, I am struggling to come up with any good adjustments that I could suggest against this team, because Jordan Love is just the sort of quarterback that we historically have struggled against. Defensively, on run D, I have no particular concerns. I think that I was worried about it earlier on in the year where we looked like we weren't doing too much, but recently I really think our run D has picked it up. Especially if Davenport comes back, if we can run some 3-4 in there with Davenport and Hutch alongside, Tyleek and DJ Reader and Aleem or Roy Lopez, there's a lot of options up front. I'm kind of okay with that, but we've really struggled in zone. They've got the guys, they've got the horses that can kind of do bits with that. In some ways, Christian Watson is a 6'4", 220-pound receiver who's got speed. It's going to be hard to match up against him if he's on it. And for the first time in his career, he's on it. So, okay, fine. We're going to put Terry on or DJ Reed against him. I mean, DJ Reed, he's giving up 7 inches to him at 5'9". Now, that's going to be a rough assignment, even if he is very competitive. So when it's manned up, and when it's zone, the saving grace is that the Packers haven't really put this all together. One of the ways that you can disrupt them is Love isn't great under pressure, I don't think. But what have the Lions really struggled to do? Get pressure which is kind of effective. Pressure which really, really impacts the quarterback. And because of that, we've been blitzing a lot. And, yesterday I talked about the fact that I really want to see our blitz rate come down. Because the blitz hasn't really been generating any pressure either, but it has been putting your DBs on an island. In some ways, I'm just praying that the defensive line becomes more effective so we can drop back a few more guys so that we can try and hang, because it could be a rough day.
Yeah, the key will be getting that pressure, as you say. I know we're up there for sack rate, pressure rate, and that. We're near the bottom in quick pressures. That's what you need here. You can't give Love that extra half second. You can get pressure. You can get all the QB hits and that you want on him, and we can get hurries. But they need to either be sacks or quick hurries where he is having to force the ball out in 2 seconds under that, because otherwise, especially with the way that their receivers are and what will be given up in terms of height and speed to Watson, potentially to Dobbs. He'll be able to pick apart any zone we do play. It is going to be one of them where we might have to play a tiny bit more man than we did last week, because it just didn't work, did it? But at the same time, we've got to be clever about it. Still blitz, but be more clever about it. Don't be as obvious with it, because that's one of the things that obviously the Giants keyed in on last week. I keep saying last week because days ago. Mm-hmm. They would see the blitz come in and it would be right screen to Tyrone Tracy. They get 20 yards from it. We can't let Green Bay cue into what we're doing on defense. But I don't know off the top of my head right now what to do other than get the quick pressures and hope. That's why I hope Davenport is back, because it means we can put Aleem back in at free tech, sit him right over that A gap between the centre and right guard, and just get him through there. It's where they're weak against the run. That's the whereas they have actual notes. They have one good run lane they have, but in passing, it is a bit susceptible. Target that. Have DJ Reader or Lopez occupy the centre and left guard, and just have Aleem have that one-on-one against the right guard, because half the time he will win that, and that's what we need. We need to get pressure in Love's face. It will either make him step up, and then Hutch and AQ or whoever's on the edge can clean it up, or he has to step up, fire the ball out, and it's errant, and we can hopefully pick it off or it goes incomplete. Because otherwise, if we let him pick us apart, long drives, they've have Josh Jacobs back to be able to run the ball pretty well. We'll be having 8-9 minute drives against us. Defense will get tired and they'll break us apart by the end of the third quarter.
Yeah, completely agree. Okay, so with all that said, Ash, it's time to try and predict what the fuck is going to happen in this game.
It's going to be fucking close, isn't it? It's going to be a cardiac game again, but this time against a better team. I obviously don't see it going to overtime. I hope not. No one can ever predict overtime, but 27-24 to us, optimistically.
I really struggle with this, because I know our defense is playing super well, and we've been talking it up all season, and when one bad game last week doesn't ruin it, but it isn't last week, it's 2 days ago, and we're playing in 2 days' time, and they were rough. And against Green Bay, that is not the sort of team you want to get into a rhythm. That said, I would hope that our offense can overcome their defense, but it just feels like they have a slight matchup advantage. But the way that we take over games, the people that can do it are the people that can ruin it for them. Parsons is the only one for them, whereas we've got Gibbs, Amon-Ra, and then Hutchinson, and Campbell is now in that vein as well. Jack Campbell, a linebacker. I think that the Lions have a few more game-changing players, but Parsons can be overwhelming. And, which of those is going to be bigger than the other? I am going to call overtime. I do think it will happen. I'll go 27-24. The Lions kit in a field goal to win after both stall out in their first possession. It's going to be a tough one. All right, we're going to preview the rest of the Thanksgiving slate, but we're going to do that after signing off on the audio podcast. If you are with us on YouTube and Twitch, stay right there. But for the guys on the audio show, our next episode is tomorrow, College Football Podcast. Looking back at week 13, ahead to week 14, the last game in the regular season. The game is happening on Saturday, Ohio State at Michigan. I think game day morning is going to be there too, like it was when I was there 4 years ago. It's going to be a terrific game. I'll tell you what, Ohio State look like a juggernaut, and Michigan, I think, are going to potentially struggle in that one. We will see, though, at home in the big house. Who knows? Otherwise, lots to talk about in terms of the FCS playoff picture. There's other bits and pieces in terms of job openings, people interviewing, that sort of thing. So do catch Anne and Ryan on that tomorrow. Otherwise, we're not live for the Thanksgiving game. Unfortunately, we have work and social things happening on Thanksgiving Day, which of course is the evening on Thursday for us. We will be back on Friday evening recapping the game. God willing, I'll be able to watch the game before we recap it. Otherwise, that's going to be a very short show. That will be probably on Friday, and then we will enjoy the weekend slate before being back with you again on Monday, talking about the weekend that was, but previewing the Dallas Cowboys game for Thursday Night Football. You can find us on our socials on Roar of the Lions UK, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And the Facebook group for worldwide fans is Detroit Lions Fans UK, One Pride Worldwide. The website, rotluk.com. Please subscribe, rate us 5 stars on your podcast provider, give us a like, all of that good stuff. If you do go to the Facebook group, by the way, our own Ryan Farden is in Detroit. He will be there for the Thanksgiving game. He showed us some great videos of his time there on Sunday for Aiden Hutchinson's sack to finish the game. So you will see some value there. But it just remains for me to thank my co-host Ashley Sobin for doing this for me, and to all of you for listening. We'll speak to you on the college show and then with the recap. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. And God willing, we will be going up to 8 wins. Let's go, Lions. One Pride.
One Pride.
Recording stopped.
Right. Thanksgiving starts with Packers Lions, which for the first time is at 1 p.m. Eastern. Normally would be 12:30 Eastern, but they have now aligned it with the normal slate start time. And then a standalone game on Thursday is Chiefs at Cowboys. Chiefs 6-5 after a last gasp victory against the Indianapolis Colts go up against the Cowboys team that went down 21-0 against the Eagles before eking out a victory. This is a battle of two teams, Ash, who a loss potentially ends their season in a meaningful way. Because if both sides run the table, they'll be in. One loss means they then have to run the table for a shot. Cowboys at home on Thanksgiving, but Kansas City, despite playing really well on defense, still aren't quite firing altogether. Dallas's defense has turned up a notch since they've made those trades and they've got some people back healthy. What do you make of this one?
I agree. It's a tough one because, as you say, the Cowboys' defense has finally decided to turn up after missing the first 10 weeks of the season. So, be interested in the Chiefs. They've got that reputation, haven't they? But they just haven't been there this season. And I look at that 1-4 wave record, and I'm just like, can they do it? I know they had some really good offensive production last week, like Rashee Rice getting some good yardage and that. But honestly, I'm going to say the Cowboys win it. As much as I don't want them to for the NFC playoff race, I think Dallas get it done.
I have Dallas as well. That defense is playing so well right now, and Dak is doing enough to get them to win, and Kansas City just don't quite look it right now. And of course, it's the regular season, so of course Dallas is going to look good. Frankly, I'm willing to trade the NFC playoff picture a little bit to see the Chiefs miss the playoffs. I'm just here for it at the moment, even if it hurts us. The final game on the Thanksgiving slate is Bengals at Ravens at 8:20 Eastern. The 3-8 Bengals travel to Baltimore for an in-division matchup against Lamar Jackson and the 6-5 Ravens, who are leading the AFC North. The Ravens had one of their worst games with Lamar Jackson as a starter last Sunday. Still came out with a win against the Jets team, which is all at sea. Lamar Jackson had his 6th worst rushing game since he became the starter in Baltimore, and 4 of those 6 games he had a fumble in them. So his games were so bad he might as well have fumbled on Sunday as a rusher, and he wasn't much as a passer either. And it's against a Cincinnati team that welcomes back Joe Burrow. If the Bengals win, this division is still very much alive, but with a Ravens victory, it slips away from everyone else very much into the Ravens' hands. Late kickoff on Thanksgiving. What do you think?
I don't know if Joe Burrow coming back will be what they need. They have better quarterback play for sure, but better than what they had with Jake Browning. Flacco's been kind of actual decent as a Bengal, but he doesn't play defense, and that defense is still shocking. I know Trey Hendrickson's been out for the past couple of weeks, and that really does hurt them. Honestly, don't know if he'll be back for this. And the Ravens know that they need to win this game, and it gets them into the division lead, and they will want to bounce back after a poor performance against the Jets. Seattle Lamar is going to run all over the Bengals in the lovely helmets that they're wearing this week, because they're wearing one of their fancy alternate uniforms. So that'll give them a nice boost at home.
I have the Bengals, even though they're 7-point underdogs. I just think if I look at Burrow coming back from injury versus what I know Lamar is, because I saw it on Sunday, I don't care if the Bengals defense is bad. Lamar's really struggling. So for that reason, I'm taking the team which I think is going to have the better offense on the day, and that's going to be the Bengals. That is all of the games which are going to happen before we are next live on the main show with everybody. There is a Black Friday game, which is Bears at Eagles, which is at 8 p.m. actually on Black Friday, UK time, 3 p.m. Eastern. So let's talk about that one as well, because we'll probably be live during that game. 8-3 Bears against the 8-3 Eagles. Can't believe I'm even saying those words. The Eagles are favoured by 7 points at home. An Eagles side that was blown away in the second half against the Dallas Cowboys after getting out to a big lead and fairly humiliated in that game against the Bears team who, in some ways they're really struggling. Caleb, is not playing exactly well right now, but they are just doing enough to win every bloody game they go out in. Eagles are hurting. Bears are riding on a crest of a wave. If they win this game, their chance of the playoffs jumps from something like 52% to about 75%. So a lot's on the line here for the Bears in Philly. What do you think?
It really is tough because Philly aren't exactly great right now, and the Bears are riding the crest of form. But you'd think with just how much more talent the Eagles have got, that they'll get the win. Again, it might be a bit of copium that the Bears run has got to end somehow. Like, they are really riding the wave of some highly volatile statistics, like obviously high turnover percentage on defense, and that. Philly, please win. Please.
Yeah, I've got Philly. They struggled against Dallas in a really big moment, but generally speaking, they've suffocated teams with better offenses than this. And with Caleb playing like this, it feels like a game where the Philly defense is going to absolutely take over. So I've got Philly. I pray that Philly win. because the Lions need to get back into first place in this division. So fingers crossed. Right, that's your lot, everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving. We'll see you on the flip side. Cheers, Ash, for doing this. We'll see you soon, everybody. Let's go, Lads, on Pride.
On Pride.